I'm French. Sorry. It's a long day, right? So this is the last session, and it's quite an exciting one. I would like to thank first Mr. Chairman, Paul Galvin, that will chair this disruptive medicine session. And Paul, if you're okay, we have a quick video introduction by Serge Barnasconi, which is the head of the MedTech Europe, which is the industrial syndicate for MedTech industry in Europe, as you know, and which is an important partner of the ESTER task force together with ETPN. So there's a little video I would like to show you, and then Patrick will give us an update on the ESTER task force.
Okay, so just one word before we use Serge's video. So Serge was initially planning to come, but Serge has his board meeting next week, so he has a lot of preparation meetings. And what you will see there is really a major change into, let's say, the ETPN operation. That means 2 years ago, the European Commission, and at that time, and since we are in Greece, we should honor, let's say, Christos Tokamanis, who was the head of unit. And Christos contacted ETPN, asking us, okay, guys, ETPN has demonstrated its knowledge in shaping the nanomedicine translation hub with the EUNCL, the pilot lines, and so on, the TAB, and so on. So can you do it for the rest of medical technologies? Well, it was not our initial mandate. But the second request was, but you have to do it with industry, because it should be an industry-driven initiative. And as we discussed yesterday, you know, if you look to our membership, first we have members only, mostly in the nanomedicine area only, and industry leadership, membership is not the majority of our members. So by, say, intermediate steps, then we were in contact with the MedTech Europe, which is, let's say, the largest trade association in medical technologies and IVD. So it's, for those who know, it's a merge between EUCOMED and EDMA. And this is how the story started. And I must say that since 2 years now, or almost 2 years, day per day, I think now we are, let's say, jointly developing, let's say, the concept of ESTER, which will be presented later on. And that's why we wanted to give, let's say, the first presentation to Serge, because since it is industry-driven, I mean, even this session is industry-driven by Serge, even at distance. Can you fix the video?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
It should work in a second. Okay, I hope the sound will work. Mm-hmm. Can you hear something? No, you cannot. Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
Wrong start.
Wrong start. It's a wrong start. Absolutely, that was the point.
It's just a taste. To start practicing.
Hello everyone. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Serge Barnasconi. I'm currently the CEO for MedTech Europe, which is actually the industry representation at Brussels level for everything which include medical devices to in vitro diagnostics. I'm very sorry. I mean, I was supposed to be with you all in Heraklion, but unfortunately my agenda is forcing me to say that not as nice, not as fun, not as beautiful places as it is Heraklion, since I am in Brussels and it's most probably raining right now. So I hope that you're enjoying your time. Please do so for all of us which are still in the north. Now, the subject I was supposed to talk with you about is essentially disruptive medicine. Now, for us in the medical technology domain, what are disruptive medicines? Well, that's a lot of what we do every day. Medical technologies by nature, okay, have been now disruptive. We bring to patients very unique, very unique technologies. Today, as I generally say, if you used to look at the science fiction movies of about 20 years ago, as we want. Now, not only is it going to help patients basically regain normal life, but this is also going to provide some very significant solutions to healthcare systems. And healthcare systems do need disruptive technologies to solve the enormous financing problems, since most of them are bankrupt. We know that if you would be using disruptive technologies, we can reduce the budget of healthcare by a very significant amount. Some people are talking about 30%. If you believe that the healthcare expenditure in Europe is about 1 trillion euro, then you take 30% of this off, then you're talking about 300 billion that could be saved in the future. Now, frankly, we've been working now very closely with you all, particularly with ETPN, and this is a great relation. I'd just like to remind you one very basic thing, is we cannot build our technologies without your output in terms of technologies. We use everything you do, and we try to integrate it into some quite innovative systems and bring thus medical technologies forward. So we need you, we need your research power, we need your innovation power, so that you can feed us with very unique material that we can use and consequently bring forward really incredible innovation. Now, I just want to say in conclusion a few words between what's happening today on the ESTER project. This is quite a critical project for us because it's really a project that will help potentially bring very new innovation, very disruptive innovation all the way to market. You know, today, one of the major challenges is how do you do and how do you make it to market when you're a young company with an incredible technology in your hand, but you have to brave this enormous amount of administration, enormous investment to be able to make it all the way to market. We had a long discussion with the Commission, and particularly DG Research, and as they say, you know, where they want to invest in the future, they want to invest in actually helping out new technologies and make it to market. That's exactly what ESTER is all about, is how can we help you or help any new small company, startup company, brave all the difficulties of going all the way to market once you have your technology. So that's the one axe of ESTER. The other axe of ESTER is obviously how can we help finance all the development that you're putting forward with the key enabling technologies. All these key enabling technologies, we need them all to be able to build innovation in the future. I hope you'll have a great day, a great discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. All. Bye.
So unfortunately, we can't ask Serge any questions.
Yeah.
But I think Patrick, who leads the ESTER initiative, is now going to give a presentation on ESTER, so you will be able to ask Patrick some of the questions. So Patrick, I think, needs no introduction. He wears multiple hats, ETPN, head of ESTER, VP in CEA. On this moment, he's speaking as head of ESTER.
Does it work? Yeah, fine. So I'm sorry, Jack, but I don't want to stay behind. So I'm moving. Thank you. So basically, this is just an update about ESTER because, well, I don't know, maybe most of you are like my wife. She say, "Who is that ESTER?" Okay, so I have to. Oh, sorry. So I have to tell you, I'm prepared for that, you know, and I'm trained for that, to tell everybody who's ESTER. So ESTER is an acronym, of course, standing for Industry-Driven Initiative on Emerging and Strategic Technologies for Healthcare. So ESTER is, let's say, a very attractive initiative which takes most of the time of, let's say, people you will see in the very last slide, people who have accepted to spend hours during nights and weekends on top of what we are supposed to do to prepare, to shape the future. And if you refer to the speech delivered by Serge Berlusconi just immediately before, you can see that this is a very good example on showing how nanomedicine is at the crossroads of future healthcare. That means if we really want to make things happen, if we really want to contribute to future healthcare, nanomedicine will have to learn, be combining with other technologies, and it's not only developing nice prototypes, nice demonstrators, but to bring these demonstrators to you and me, that means to the patients, okay? So this is basically the spirit behind. So can I have the next slide, please? And so basically, when the commission, the DGRTD contacted us, and I'm talking about under the control, I'm speaking under the control of ACO, who was a witness of this, what happened 2 years ago. Basically, when we realized that in medical technology, so just to define, to give a definition, medical technologies, in my words, means medical devices, in vitro diagnostic, medical imaging, and e-health. Not the apps, not the big data, not the cloud, but connected health. And so this industry is 100 billion euros per year, which is more or less the same turnover as the semiconductor industry in Europe. It's just, I would say, 1/2 of the pharma turnover. So it's not, let's say, 1/10 of the pharma industry. And but despite this huge turnover, I mean, this medical industry is not visible. And I have made this experience, but if you ask, let's say, some top people, even in the ministries, the key opinion leaders, we say, okay, what is medical technology? Say, well, I don't know. Well, health means pharma, means IMI. This is basically the logic behind in everybody's mind. So nobody understands what medical technologies are. So I won't give you the list, but if you go to the website of MedTech Europe, you have a fantastic overview of the different classes of medical devices. So innovation is taking place mostly in SMEs in this industry. The large companies are they are integrators. That means they don't perform, to some exceptions, they don't perform R&D. They are integrating technologies developed by others. And these technologies are developed mostly by SMEs. And, but most of these SMEs have great difficulties because they have great difficulties in reaching the market because it's too far, too long, too complicated. And the second reason to initiate Esther is that the most promising SMEs are taken over by American companies, and this is then the usual story: born in Europe, grown in US. So Europe is missing all the value generated initially born in Europe. And you know that the regulatory framework has been voted in 2 months in June, and will enter into force in 2 or 3 years, depending on the 2 regulations. And these new regulations will have a major impact in medical technology area. I would say I compare it, let's say, to the REACH directive, you know, for the chemical industry some years ago. And on top of that, well, just I don't know how many of you have, let's say, a connected watch, but let's say digitization of healthcare is a new trend which will have an impact, and also in nanomedicine. Don't forget this. You cannot escape digitization. And finally, the new business models. Well, just read every day the newspapers. You know, Sanofi is dealing with Google to invest into diabetes management, or Medtronic is dealing with IBM. Or so, you know, the former classification, pharma, medtech, biotech, IT, does no longer exist. You can see so many joint ventures crossing over the borders. You know, that's the new business models. We have to be flexible to adapt to these new business models. Next, please. And the political context is that first, you know, that a new commission has been elected 2 years ago now, or 1.5 maybe, and the focus it's a clear strategy of the new commission to focus its help on SMEs, which are considered as the reservoir for jobs, growth, and contribution to the economic renaissance. And also backward, please. And the Commissioner for Research, Science and Policy, Commissioner Moedas, has fixed this, also his priorities, which are, let's say, open science, open innovation, openness to the world. And finally, the third level, let's say, or the first layer of strategy is the one given by the German Commissioner Oettinger to focus on digitization of society. And so you don't see in any of these priorities, let's say, nano in medicine, of course. So nano in medicine is not a top priority of the Commission. Well, surprising or not. But it means, but beyond that, of course, it would not be, let's say, the top priority of Europe. But you don't see, let's say, individual cats development. So it means what we have to understand, and this was the message we have repeated since 2 days now, that what we have to take into account is this evolution of healthcare. So we need to evolve or to die. Next, please. So the vision of Esther is to provide integrated, smart, and innovative solutions to the patient. So there again, I mean, because the patients are, let's say, our parents, our children, ourselves. So we want to benefit of all the innovation which has been funded by Europe, which has been funded by European companies, and then to have access to these technologies. So this is like a return on investment by the society. And we want, to do this, let's say, taking into account the huge pressure on the healthcare systems in Europe, I would say the 28 healthcare systems, in terms of regulation, in terms of cost containment. And, of course, we want to support the emergence or the consolidation of the European industry. Next, please. And so this vision is translated in 3 objectives. First, of course, to improve the quality of care. Second, to improve the competitiveness of companies, and companies could be, let's say, spin-off startup and large companies. And finally, to reinforce innovation in Europe. That's why probably you are here today. Next. And so the concept is, I will tell you what the concept is, and the next step, what the concept is not. So the concept is a flexible organization platform, probably an association, or we don't care. I mean, the lawyers are working on that, but it's a very flexible association under which all the stakeholders all along the value chain, and value chain starts as you, I mean, scientists, up to the patient. Sometimes these are the same. So, but anyway, if you look, let's say, in a linear way, we start the scientists developing, let's say, discoveries, innovation, clinical validation, regulatory validation, market reimbursement, market access, and so on. So this is a long value chain, and so all the stakeholders contributing at one step or another in the value chain should have the possibility to discuss with, let's say, either the previous or the next, or even more of the stakeholders. And the reason behind is that EC has invested a lot. Some figures have been given by ECHO a few minutes ago, but if you look to the investments, the European investment and the national investment on medical technologies under FP7 and first years of Horizon 2020, it's a lot. But so some of the European projects have been very successful in delivering prototypes, but very few, I can give you the figures, but very few have been able, after the end of the project, to develop their prototypes and bring them to the market. Because, let's say, it was not the objective or the initial objective, because they were funded for doing research and development and not industrial development and validation and market access. Next, please. And so this is another way of representing, let's say, the 2 axes of Esther. The first one, which is the horizontal one, we want to facilitate this cross-cut collaboration. And I will tell you how we have already started to do so. But just give you one, ECHO gave you an example. Let's say there is a call in 2016, I think NAB is 13 if I'm correct, this cross-cut for healthcare. That means this is, even the EC is experiencing, let's say, this cross directorates, or cross DGs collaboration, which is very good. And once projects will be developed in the medical imaging or in the medical device or the IVD industry, then we are setting up a lot of complementary actions to bring these products to the market through the regulatory pathway. Next, please. So Esther, unlike the previous initiatives in research and development, is, let's say, addressing all the steps from TRL, let's say, 3, 4, up to TRL 9. So no previous, or if I'm wrong, please tell me, I would be very happy to learn about such an initiative. No initiative before took into account, let's say, the whole process all along the value chain. And having an organization like MedTech Europe, let's say, twinning or partnering with ETPN, just show you that because MedTech Europe is not performing research. They are, let's say, this is a trade association of MedTech companies and MedTech association. So it is like a continuum, let's say, from research to the market, and which is totally new. Next, please. And so on this slide, you can see some of the initiatives, you know. So on top, you have, let's say, the ETPs. So you know that ETPs have been founded, has been established maybe 10 or 12 years, or 11 years for ETPN, and we were among the first. So, but there are ETPs, let's say, on textile, on materials, on photonics, on robotics, and so on. So individual kits are addressed by individual ETPs. And you have also the big one in terms of budget, IMA, which is a joint undertaking led by the pharma industry in partnering with the European Commission. And you have also the most recent initiative, the EIT, European Institute of Technology, Health, also known as KIC InnoLife. And so these are the major or the most famous initiatives in healthcare. So Aster is not, let's say, starting from scratch. There is already an environment with a lot of initiatives. Next, please. So Aster is, I would say, in the middle. I don't know if we are in the middle or if we are above or below. I don't know. I don't care. But Aster is connected. And it's not a theoretical picture, because it means we have met all these people, and more than this, most of these people are active contributors to the Aster task force you will see on the very last slide. So it shows you that, you know, what we decided at the early days of Aster is to build this initiative in coherence with the environment and with the existing initiatives. Not duplicating, not replacing, not competing with the existing ones, but taking advantage of the possible synergies. Next, please. So what Aster is not a new PPP, public-private partnership, because how to say politically correct? That means some member states don't want to invest anymore in public-private partnerships. You know that there is a review of the current contractual PPPs led by the European Commission to see whether the first PPPs are successful or not. And we expect that some CPPPs will be stopped because they didn't deliver. So there's no need for, at the moment, to establish a new CPPP on the medical technologies. And so Aster is not, let's say, a new agency or a new company asking for money to implement its vision. Aster is a place, let's say, I use the word maybe agora, or since we are in Greece. Aster is a place where, let's say, the different stakeholders can jointly elaborate a strategy which is then implemented by the stakeholders by themselves, each one implementing part of the big picture. Next, please. And so these are the facts. So Aster, there again, I answered about the legal structure, the relationship with the other initiatives. We have a strong commitment of industry, and then I like to make the test. Can any of you tell me another initiative where, let's say, medtech, pharma, and medical imaging are working together? If you know, I would be very happy. Especially if you know the, let's say, the characters of the leaders of these three organizations. So we have these three organizations in the same room at Aster task force meetings. So this is a really maybe the major achievement of Aster. And second, we are, let's say, we're in relation with the program committees, not only in nano, because I told you it's not only a nano, and the future of medicine is not restricted to nano, but to nano, to photonics, to robotics, and so on. So this is what we have initiated in the past 2 years. Next, please. And so just the idea, but when will Aster come? And of course, as you can see, this is a totally new vision of healthcare and innovation in healthcare. So you cannot implement it like this, because people have to get used. We have to find new ways of cooperation, new ways of interactions among each other. So we have decided to implement gradually Esther over the last years of Horizon 2020, and to be ready in 2020 to be ready for full deployment under FP9. Nobody knows what FP9 means. Well, I'm using FP9 because I don't know if there is another code name, and maybe Echo can tell us some secrets, EC secrets. But let's call it FP9, and we know that it will be different from Horizon 2020. And so Esther Task Force will meet, let's say, the high-level group in charge of FP9, let's say, to express our wishes so that Esther could fully deploy in, let's say, easier way under FP9 than Horizon 2020. Next, please. And these are some of the stakeholders. So you can see on this slide that you don't have, let's say, not individual companies or individual clusters, because in the first 2 years we use mostly, say, the associations, like the trade associations, the ETPs, some European societies, because then it was one way to multiply our contacts throughout Europe. So this is, of course, is open. And I have added recently the 16 regions. Of course, I didn't put the names, but we have initiated, let's say, a group or a cluster. No, let's call it a group of regions, voluntary regions. It's always on a voluntary basis. And so 16 different regions from all over Europe have decided to say, okay, yes, MedTech is part of our strategy. Yes, we want to implement our local strategy using our regional funding and to align our local strategy to the European Esther. So it's one way, let's say, to make the European initiative very close to the SMEs, because, you know, SMEs, what? Just like today, you know, SMEs are not attending, let's say, the European meetings. They have no time to travel, no resources for doing that. So one way is, okay, the SMEs will not come to Esther, so Esther will come to SMEs. We'll go to the SMEs, and of course, since we are, let's say, a small group, we will use, let's say, the clusters, the regions, and also the national associations to reach them, to listen to them, and then to bring them the ideas and the concepts elaborated by Esther. Next, please. And so this is my conclusion. Well, I'm sorry, this was used for the NBP program committee last week, but it is what the take-home message is, that you are a community, I mean we are, because I'm part of it, we are a community in nanomedicine, but we have to learn how to interact with, let's say, with other programs. So there again, I'm referring to the initiative with ICT, but also with, even within this DGRTT, with the societal challenge number one, with the people doing robotics, in people doing, let's say, photonics. So we have to learn working together to develop, let's say, the next generation of medical devices. And what is totally new, and we will not be asked to do so because we are not experienced in, let's say, navigating through the regulatory pathway, even though what has been presented through the tab has been highly appreciated, and so one of the actions, the 20 top actions listed by Esther, is this, what I call the super tab. That means, of course, the tab is so successful that we will expand it not much beyond nanomedicine, so addressing all fields of medical technologies, and with much more resources as well, to have more experts, so that we can answer to more requests from SMEs and spin-off. And that's it. So on the last slide, you will see that, next please, so these are the people behind. So you can see on this slide that the task force is already a quite large group. So you have on the left, the blue column, the different European units. So it means it's not, let's say, totally, it's not a private initiative. It's not an ETPN only initiative. ETPN has been in the driving seat, let's say, from the beginning, but since it is an industry-driven initiative, you can see here that you have not only, let's say, the associations, but also large companies. You have B. Braun, Stryker, some BioMérieux, Sanofi, for instance. No, Didier is in over there. So we have pharma companies, we have medical imaging companies, we have medical device companies on board, and so which is a great pleasure. It's a hard time because you know, we have to try and understanding each other, but this is how significant progress has been performed in the last 2 years in designing Esther. And with that, I think I will be very happy to answer to your questions if you have any questions. Thank you for your attention.
questions? One at the front.
I think it's a very good idea, Patrick. I don't know if you have the idea to connect this initiative with other initiatives in the world, Latin America or in Asia or in US, but led by European companies. I don't know.
Thank you for your question, Eusebio. We have discussed at this point, especially bridging or liaising with the US. But you know that the world of medical technologies is led by US companies. No, even if Medtronic is registered in Ireland, but everyone knows that, let's say, the headquarters is in the US, Boston Scientific, Johnson & Johnson, and so on. These companies operate also in Europe, but we know that, let's say, the decision centers are in the US. And so, you know, Europe and US are competitors, clearly, in medical technologies. And so for the moment, we do not involve, let's say, American bodies, let's say, whether they're private or public bodies, into ESTER, even though AdvaMed, which is, let's say, the equivalent of MedTech Europe for America, AdvaMed, has already approached MedTech Europe saying, well, guys, we have heard about ESTER, can we discuss and so on. So because it is an industry-driven initiative, we are very careful about this. Because even in science, okay, we can all cooperate all over the world, but in industry, it is a different business. So far, it's only a European initiative focusing on its implementation in Europe. Then, because if you notice on the MOIDASH priorities open to the world, we have listed some actions, especially with the emerging economies, because you know that these emerging economies are buying a lot of European technologies or European medical devices. So we have some chapters addressing this on how we can interact with these emerging economies, so Brazil, India, China, because they are already customers, clients of European companies.
I'm going to suggest that we move on because we're quite a bit behind time. So thank you very much, Patrick.